Being 5:15, I'd like to call the September 25th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting to order. Please stand for pledge.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, call from taken. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
Also move.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion's carried. Okay, review and approve the August 25th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes. Read in your packet. Looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion's carried. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Review a site plan for cell tower on Hillshire Drive.
All right. So the new address is gonna be 1840 Hillshire Drive. I did run this through our current zoning ordinance. It meets all our zoning requirements. The state kind of regulates a lot of this, so we're kind of limited as to what even a site plan could look like on these, because like I said, they're regulated by the state, so. I did talk with utilities. Jay reviewed what they had sent, and he was comfortable with what they proposed, so from a utility standpoint. So I'm recommending approval of this cell tower at 1840 Hillshire Drive.
So is that an actual cell tower, or is that communication tower?
Communication tower, yeah.
It's what?
Communication tower, yeah.
Who owns the land that it's going on?
Pardon?
Who owns the land that it's going on? Or who did they purchase it from?
It says on the thing, it's Robert Miller Jr. Trustees.
Okay, is there any more questions? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the site plan for the cell tower on Hillshire Drive.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried. Next item on the agenda is a draft of sign code for discussion and comments.
So Ben Rohr will be taking this, him, Chad, and I have been working on this for on and off for a few weeks now, so we're ready to bring it to the Plan Commission for comments and get a draft that'll work for the new zoning ordinance.
All right. Well, thank you, David, and thank you all. Good to see you all again. Like it was mentioned, we wanted to tackle the sign code that was provided to you as a draft in the packet. So it's been a little bit since we've been back in front of you all. We have been actively working on part 2. There's a variety of different elements there, like mentioned, that we've been working with staff on, but today we want to introduce sort of the remaining portions of part 2 to you, in addition to the sign ordinance review. And then what we're planning moving forward would be to put everything together. So you would have one full draft of the zoning ordinance and map, and we'd have that discussion at that time, sort of gearing up for potential adoption after that. So as you are all familiar, we broke the code into part 1 and part 2 for the ability and ease of review. We've reviewed the parking element of part 2 in addition to building design and landscaping requirements. Today we're talking about signage. So there's a couple of different elements that we haven't necessarily brought before you in relationship to a dedicated plan commission meeting. And some of these things are within the performance measures section, such as fences and pools and ongoing standards such as vibration and noise. You will obviously have a chance to review and look at all of those things, and we can discuss and ask questions about them. But a lot of this stuff falls within the staff realm of things, and or we're going to make it fall in the staff realm of things with this project. And so we weren't going to have necessarily a dedicated working session with you all. Additionally, the admin and procedures and definitions that outlines all of the various steps within the code and reflects all of the various terms within the code. And so we didn't necessarily plan on having a standalone session for either of those 2 articles as well. But like I mentioned, we will have the opportunity to view everything in full context. And I will admit the Article 10 and 11 does provide a lot of length to the code, but they're important elements. They're things that we may not use on a regular day-to-day basis, but we do need to have them within our code and spelled out. And so we're not going to necessarily spend a lot of time looking through them, but we're making sure from the city attorney perspective, from the city staff perspective, we're all in alignment on those elements. So moving to the sign code itself, here's a couple of the goals that are outlined for what we were trying to accomplish with this new sign code. The first and foremost is bringing it into compliance with federal law. In 2017, there was a U.S. Supreme Court decision that basically said that all governments regulating signs have to now regulate them via content neutrality, meaning that we can no longer regulate the type of sign, or we can no longer regulate the sign by what the content of it says. So the most obvious one that you'll see in a variety of different codes across the country is a for sale sign. That's very common, that's very typical, but we can no longer call it a for sale sign because that's basing it off of the content. Instead, we need to call it an arm and a post sign or a yard sign, for example. We also took the time to go through the existing code and try and understand and decipher it. And we found a lot of ambiguity, a lot of conflicting or not clear standards. And we really struggled with deciphering everything that was in there today. And we want to reduce that ambiguity and make for more clear standards. And that's what we've attempted to do with this new code. Likewise, we found some redundant sign types within the code, and we've tried to consolidate those into similar groupings that we'll talk about a little bit further. And then, honestly, the new sign code, from the perspective of what will actually be used, for the most part, is those 4 tables that includes pretty much all of the regulations and requirements and standards. The rest of it is important, don't get me wrong, but most of the time you're not going to actually be using the definitions, for example, or the process steps. They're there to be referenced in the event that you need it. But for the most part, from staff perspective, from your perspective, from the applicant perspective, it's really boils down to those 4 tables. And then finally, there were things that are working within the existing code, and we wanted to retain those moving forward, and that's what we've attempted to do. And we worked with staff to refine the model and the draft to reflect that as well. So in totality, we've grouped all signs into 3 categories on that far left column. So we've got permanent business signs, we've got other, mostly in the temporary realm of things, and then miscellaneous. From that perspective, we have a hierarchy. So we group them all together into those 3 groupings. Then we have categories within each one of those that talk about things that you're probably familiar with, like freestanding or on building or window. And then it goes into the individual types of signs that fall within those various categories. So things like a monument sign that you'll see as an example in that image, or a banner sign that again is shown in that image. And so for the vast majority of what will be coming in relationship to sign permits, those really fall in that top column, that permanent, or top row, I should say, permanent business signs. And in all reality, that's one single table that consolidates a lot of the sign code into that format. So we're going to spend a little time orienting you to that. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, but when you look at this, you're like, holy crap, there is a lot here. How would I begin to decipher it? But in all reality, once it becomes used more frequently by both staff and applicants and sign companies in particular, there will be a streamline in terms of understanding what's really needed to be pulled out of this table that's applicable to different situations. So what you would do in all reality is you'd start on that left side of the table and you'd look at what type of sign am I proposing or interested in doing? And then you see a visual graphic on the right that basically illustrates what version of sign we're talking about in relationship to that name. So we might have changed the name to be content neutral in reflection of state statutes, but we've provided these visualizations and the definitions to help make that clear for individuals using the code. Then after you've decided which sign you would be looking to do, you would move to the middle columns, and this will say whether a sign permit is required, the number of signs permitted on that property or that configuration of a building, the sign location, the sign material, lighting, and then the formula that you would use to calculate the size of the sign. And so in all reality, it does look like a lot, but when you boil it down to maybe a monument sign, for example, you just need to look across that row and you will find nearly every regulation, requirement, and standard built right there for you to use. And then finally, there's the sign area and height maximums. And we've just distilled this into different zoning districts. So what we did is we grouped zoning districts by type. So we've got 1 and 2 family, multifamily, non-residential, mixed use, and downtown. Some rows you'll see are combined, meaning that the same standards apply for those groupings of zoning districts, whereas in others you'll see not allowed. So for instance, a monument sign isn't permitted in a single family zoning district, but it is permitted in the non-residential and mixed use zoning districts. And so that's sort of the orientation of what we've done with this table. And then finally, we can't cover every single thing. There is some nuance when it comes to sign codes and different situations that present themselves. So we have added footnotes. So in reference to particular situations that you're looking at, you may need to reference the footnote to get the full picture of what you're looking at. So for example, you're proposing a canopy with a sign on it. It needs to be a certain height to provide safety from pedestrians walking underneath it. That's a footnote that lives within this document, so you can reference it, whereas it doesn't necessarily fit within the table itself. Now, beyond the tables, like I mentioned, there's other elements within the code. Between the graphic components and the added definitions, we hope that we're creating a situation with far less interpretation needed and very clear-cut situations. Now, we're not going to be able to predict every single situation. I've even been presented with signs that I was like, I don't exactly know what this is using this sign code, but we're hopefully going to limit that significantly through this process. We also built in unique situation standards. For example, electronic message signs, where those can fit within the code. Fuel price signs, those are regulated by the state, so we need special standards for that. Sign measurement is often something when there's staff turnover or different staff people using the sign code. This is a common situation that often presents itself as to how are we uniformly measuring signs to be consistent. And so we've added a graphical element to help explain different situations and how they could be measured. We also obviously have approvals and permits. So what we've done with the proposed code is we've really tried to streamline the approach and make it staff review and approval for a lot of different sign types, rather than the ambiguity of whether it needs to go to the Plan Commission or a different body for approval. We've also tried to clear up prohibited signs by making it clear that off-premise signs or right-of-way signs are not permitted based off of, in addition to abandoned or flashing and portable signs, which can create safety hazards. And then finally, there's a couple of different elements in relationship to maintenance, non-conforming and violations, which are at the latter end of the document. So kind of in summary, what we attempted to do with this sign code was a couple of key changes. Those were consolidating sign types where we saw opportunities to do so. So for example, instead of ground, freestanding, commercial center, agricultural product sales, those are just within that freestanding sign category now. We try to retain requirements that are work. So for example, the maximum size, location, and number per site and building for the most common frequently used signs seem to be working in the community. And so we retained a lot of those provisions. They might live under a name that's different than today, but a lot of them are reflective of today. We increased user friendliness. We talked about that, diagrams, tables, examples, and we really tried to create less interpretation and less ambiguity by making it metric-based standards, using definitions, and really clearly outlining that signs within the right-of-way and or off-premise are prohibited, and attempting to expedite approval times by utilizing that staff administrative level approval process for signs that would require a permit. So with that, I will stop. Is there any questions, comments, concerns, anything that you saw either within the document or within this presentation that you'd like to discuss?
Is there any authority that you have on what you can have on the sign? The verbiage?
No.
There's nothing like freedom of speech?
Correct, meaning that we cannot regulate it.
Just throwing it out there, working through this process, I mean, we really, Dave and I spent a lot of time on part two, and especially in the signage, because we deal with a lot of signage stuff, and just having those tables and the pictures, and I mean, it makes it a lot more clear what we're talking about in different situations. So I really liked how that kind of turned out, and hopefully if someone from the public gets it and kind of looks at what this sign is all about, it's a little bit easier than trying to look at our current code and trying to figure it out, where now you have tables and graphs and pictures that kind of helps a little bit. Then I'm not seeing any more questions, so I guess you can go to the next steps.
All right. So what we're going to do is wrap up the remaining part of part two and bring it all together into a full draft zoning ordinance. One thing I will prepare is what I'm calling an executive summary, and this will outline the various meetings, discussions, kind of decisions and determinations we've made along the way, so that it's documented for all of us to understand and reference in different areas of the code itself. So we'll be able to view the entire picture sort of all together. And I know this has been, over a year-long process, so you may not remember exactly what happened, back last spring, for example, or something like that. So hopefully that context will help. From that, after that meeting, we had planned to do a public review period of the draft code and map, offering the ability for the public to weigh in on it. And then we would move into the adoption steps, which would be a public hearing before the Planning Commission, recommendation, and then a city council action. So we don't exactly have a time schedule laid out for this, but we are approaching the sort of latter end of this process, eyeing up for when adoption could take place and when it would make the most sense. That could happen in the next couple of months as we move forward through this. So that's all I had for you tonight. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. One thing I'm going to point out, just for those watching on social media, I'm just going to kind of bring up the website. Ben kind of mentioned that there is an opportunity for public input. I'm going to share my screen here in a second. We do have part one. part one is already on the city's website, so people can start reviewing things that we have. So if you go to the city's website, you can go to departments, it lives under the building inspector site right now. Scrolling down, there's zoning, and then when when the side comes out, it says 2024, 2025 zoning rewrite project. So once on that page, we have a bunch of the information on there right now about why we're doing this, what's all going on, some information, the timelines, what we've done, a bunch of the information on part one that Ben indicated that we've been talking about, plus the proposed zoning map that we have today. So there is information living on the city's website currently, and anybody wants to start looking at some of the things that we've already reviewed. So I just want to take the opportunity to point that out. All right. Ben, any last words?
No, thank you. Appreciate the time.
Any questions? Last question? Any questions? All right, looks like we're good. Thanks, Ben.
Okay, next item on the agenda is review upcoming agenda items.
I have nothing for October at this time.
Okay, review next meeting date, tentatively the October 23rd, 2025.
I'm gonna be in training that entire week out of town, so unless you want me to zoom in, assuming we have something on the agenda.
If there is something pressing, hypothetically, would either the 16th or the 30th work for everyone, just in case we, some things come up that Dave does need to be here in person for.
I'm assuming that final plat, now that I think about it, may be ready for the next meeting. I'll have to reach out to McMahon, but I have a feeling that
a
that's
good
gonna
point.
be ready to roll.
Okay.
So we might wanna pick a tentative date, 30th.
How about-
30th?
That's not Halloween, is it? 31st is Halloween?
31st is Halloween.
Okay.
We'll at least leave 1 month, week next month that we don't have a meeting.
That way we're gonna work faster.
That would move it to the same
Yeah.
week as the economic development meeting.
Yes. Good point. So hypothetically, if everybody's on the same page, we would, if we have a meeting, we would consider Thursday, October 30th. If that's all right.
And I'll check for availability. So
Okay, have nothing else on the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion's been made, and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Everybody wants to stay, say no.